Rotwood. If you haven't played it, go play it. It's $12 on Steam. You should. It's good. Made by Clay. Same people made Don't Starve Together. That game, this game. Very good game. Now that game. Yes, Rotwood. This one. This is the game we're talking about. It's too easy. Just kidding. Actually, quite the opposite sometimes it feels like. But it always felt like my fault, which is good game design. When I can just eat dirt and feel like, man, I could have done a little better. That's how you know it was a good game. This time around, I think the idea that I have is kind of silly and might make for some fairly good content if it had commentary. Otherwise, it's just kind of boring. So, here it is. I wanted to make Rotwood just a little more interesting because I want to keep playing the game and I've kind of played everything there is to play. I don't know what you would call this challenge exactly because it's mostly just a bunch of self-imposed challenges rather than having any particular theme involved. The self-imposed challenge that I'm presenting myself with is that I'm not allowing myself to use any armor whatsoever. You will see that I wear pants just because I want to wear pants. But luckily, they don't really protect you at all. They have 0 defense as long as you don't upgrade them. The only purpose that they serve until you upgrade them is to manage your weight class. Unleveled weapons, I'm going to be using the spear for this challenge just because I like the spear and I really schmoove with it quite a bit, or at least I started to after a bit. I don't know, this challenge kind of made me learn how to use the spear in a much more combo focused way. No Wellspring buffs, that lovely little machine that gives you buffs every time you kill a boss of a higher frenzy level. We're not going and doing that because yes. Lately there was a patch that allowed you to turn them off, so, I mean, why not add it to the list of things that I'm not allowed to do? No powers, perks, boons, I'm not exactly sure what you call them in this game, but the things you collect that allow you to make a build while you're in the middle of a run, we're not going to be collecting those just because I feel like that's very RNG based, and like everything else in this challenge, it'll make me stronger, and that is the last thing we want. One last caveat that I feel like just made sense to me was only using guaranteed potion rooms. Before each mini-boss and boss rot, respectively, there is a guaranteed potion room. And because those are guaranteed and not any kind of RNG dependent, I will be using those, if I need to. That's the rundown of the challenge. I hope you enjoy my commentary. I've never done anything like this before, so we'll see how that comes out. To start off, you'll see that I have the most basic equipment, and also that the Wellspring is empty. Just to show absolutely how under-leveled I am, it recommends that I have 55 damage and, 20 armor there? I have nothing. I have none of that. I do 5 damage and have no armor whatsoever. You'll see that I'll use the environment to my advantage a lot here, just because the spear does so little damage that I need to find any way that I can to compensate for that. Right here, in fact, I have a bomb I'm going to use during the second wave of this room. Clear it a little bit faster. It's especially vital if there's a bunch of imbued Bublins in the room, because their little bowling move is so hard to avoid when there's like more than 3 of them doing it at once. Though the one thing that I've learned about that you can consistently avoid them with is because of this game's mostly horizontal style, they don't roll directly upwards ever. So if you're ever in a pinch with the Bublins bowling like that, you can just go above them. You can do that with a lot of enemies actually, but particularly them, you'll notice I try to aim either directly above or directly below them. And as far as room RNG is concerned, the very start of every single game I have yet to see be anything other than Tephra, or Tephra with the choice of picking a perk. I also have learned how to use the spear in a much more satisfying way. Combos started coming more naturally to me after I failed a lot longer, At first I was playing really safe, and I guess in some ways I still am. Playing fairly safe, but you can see, especially when it's a one-on-one, I've gotten a lot more consistent with keeping combos up with the spear and doing more than just the basic light attack. The spikes don't get triggered by the enemies, but if I trigger them while the enemy is standing on it, it does quite a bit of damage. The question mark rooms are interesting because it's still kind of RNG based. I have a chance to get that gambling guy who I'm not going to talk to, but if he shows up at all, then it means I kind of just get to skip that room and I don't have to do it. I don't think it's completely against the heart of the challenge to abuse that where possible, just because sometimes you're locked into doing them and you have no choice but to skip the room. And it's not like I haven't proved that I've done this kind of non-RNG challenge of the game, because there's plenty of rooms to complete. You'll see that I cancel the flurry rush with my spear with the cross check quite a bit, even if it doesn't hit the enemy. And that's because simply canceling it at all with the cross check allows me to restart the combo with light attacks faster than I would be able to otherwise. There's just a lot of end lag after the flurry rush. And canceling it at all with the cross check just removes, I'd say, about half a second worth of end lag. Maybe less, but feels good to do. And even then, it'll hit the enemy occasionally. The small Bublins are pretty easy to deal with. Generally, what I've started doing is picking off the problem enemies first, that being the Bublins, the imbued ones, that bowl. Mulligan sounds really nice, honestly. Even for this challenge, it's nice to know that I don't necessarily have to use it, but in the heart of the challenge, I'm not going to pick it up. Speaking of which, I didn't get hit at all yet. I know that I don't think I've ever made it past the mini-boss, at least up until this run, without getting hit. But depends on what you get hit by if it really matters too much. Just because the boss can do, well, this mini-boss here, can do half your health, more than, without any armor. And smaller enemies do like a fifth, maybe a sixth of it, which is still a lot. But the idea of getting two-shot, I had a run where I got two-shot, and it was just unfortunate. But you'll see here that the main goal is to play pretty patient. There's a lot of kiting. You can sync up the radishes that come out of the bushes so that they're usually behind the mini-boss as I'm fighting him. But there are also certain patterns with how they spawn that I've started to abuse. The imbued ones, these big radish guys, they only spawn a certain amount of them before it's very unlikely, it seems like, for them to spawn. So at the start of the fight, I kind of take out all of the imbued radishes. I don't know their actual name, I'm just calling them radishes, but I take them out and then it'll just spawn the small ones most of the time. It doesn't matter too much whether you take them out or not, just because these little radishes move pretty slowly, and as long as you're not really close to them, they don't have any kind of long-range attack. But the imbued radishes are still a little more annoying because they don't take any kind of knockback that the mini-boss will do to them. And that's something else you can kind of count on, is the mini-boss rot. You saw it right there, just they knocked over all the little radishes, giving me more free space to hit them. The big radishes don't care about that. They just eat it. They eat the punch and don't get knocked over. So I like taking care of them if I can. Similar with other rooms, the general idea is to take care of the problem enemies first, just because if the next wave happens and those enemies are still around, they might bring more of those enemies in, and it's going to compound in difficulty. So, like the imbued Bublins that do the little bowling move, I take care of them first, just because they're so hard to deal with in mass numbers, and usually they don't give you too many of those, but they will build up if you don't take care of them first and you kill enough enemies to get a second wave of enemies, and it spawns more of them. I just got to skip a couple rooms there, which is good. Not gonna sugarcoat it, the majority of this run is going to be the Mother Treek, just because of how much health she has. Other than that, though, I feel like despite how under-leveled I have made my character, this is a fairly reasonable amount of time to clear the stage. Even the mini-boss rot wasn't too bad. You just had to play kind of patient. And I think you probably could have played a little more aggressive. For most of the rooms, though, I am playing kind of aggressive, just because I realized I didn't have to play so patient, as long as I was able to group up the enemies that were an issue and kill them off first before another wave showed up. This is a difficult room, too. So there's going to be bombs and Bublins, imbued Bublins. This game's wiki is not even really developed at all yet, so I'm still figuring stuff out on my own. Which is kind of exciting in one way, but I am definitely a wiki reader. That little bramble of sticks stops the Bublins from doing their roll sometimes, and I can't tell you how many times it has saved me where they were on direct collision with me and the sticks stopped them and I just didn't take damage, which is such a relief when it happens. Because any amount of damage you take in Frenzy level 3 is just, it hurts so badly. Nothing feels more satisfying than clearing half of the room's Bublins with a singular bomb. I can't even tell if... surely the room was designed to be overwhelming and reward the players who know how to use the bombs like that, which is something I didn't even think about until this challenge. I've always just kind of eat dirt. This was also 3 waves, and it wasn't 3 easy waves, mind you. The first wave was fairly normal. The second wave was only as easy as it was because I timed the bomb correctly. And then they're throwing this kind of hodgepodge of bigger enemies. Well, just this one big enemy. This is a tough room. It was a difficult room that I had entered, the one with the teeth. But I'm happy I managed it the way I did. This was very well handled. Chance for another room skip? Nope. Nope. Just more Bublins. Bowling Bublins. At least when the Bublin bowlings are in a tower, I just call them that now. At least when the imbued Bublins are in tower formation, they're not gonna bowl at you. I know I talk about that specific enemy and that specific attack a lot, but it has been the bane of my existence on every single attempt. It's so fast, they can come at you from a mile away, and there's so many Bublins on screen sometimes that it's the only truly overwhelming part of Frenzy Level 3 in this challenge, or Frenzy Level 3 in general. But once you get the hang of it and knowing their timing, and that you can kind of just go above or below them, it's certainly manageable enough. Sometimes when multiple enemies are low on health, you can stack them just so you can kill them really quick while the next wave comes in. I guess a better way of explaining that is when there's 2 enemies left and they spawn the next wave, what you can do is leave both enemies on... You can leave 3 enemies on low health, and then when you kill one, it'll spawn the new wave, but you should be able to kill the 2 remaining enemies really quickly, just because they're already low health. Just abuse the fact that they wait for a specific amount of enemies on screen left before they actually spawn in that wave. Give yourself as much of an advantage as possible. You'll see that I'm going to do that way more in-depth in the Mother Treek fight, because the absolute last thing that I want is to reactivate Mother Treek doing her attack patterns while there are still enemies on screen. So I want to make sure that pretty much every enemy, or at least the problem enemies, particularly the Bublins, are completely eradicated or low health before I reactivate Mother Treek. Sometimes the enemies don't get affected by the cross-check as they're coming out of the bush. And I guess it makes sense. They're still, like, in their spawning animation, so they're not going to be affected by any kind of knockback. But it still feels weird. Sometimes I'll hit them, and they won't get knocked back, and I have to do it a second time. Makes complete sense, though. I don't think we've seen any of these imbued trees in this run, but they can be a real hassle sometimes because they can target you from so far away, and I just feel like I have no way to counter them other than to simply target them first. I don't know if I really got to show it off in this run, but sometimes what I will do if they're on screen is, and this goes for any other enemy too, but the issue with other enemies is that they move, I will not let them see me. As long as they're just barely off screen, they won't know that you're there and they won't start attacking you. And that's kind of how I dealt with the tree. Also, this guy is stuck. Hello? I have freed the boy. But yeah, as long as they're slightly off screen, the enemies won't actually attack you, and you can abuse that with the trees the most because they don't move. They're not going to wander towards you. And it can just take a lot off your back when you don't have more enemies focusing on you. This is the first potion that I'm going to need. The one at the boss. I didn't need the one for the mini-boss. Mother Treek, this is going to be a long fight, man. She has so much health, and my spear does so little damage. And it doesn't... I can most certainly play more aggressive during this fight just to make it the littlest bit... Just make it a little shorter. But at this point in the run, I absolutely do not want to take any chance with that because it's so easy to get caught up in one of Mother Treek's attack patterns. It's hard to attack her and avoid some of her attacks at the same time. So as soon as she does her tell, where she'll bring up her arms to indicate that there are going to be some roots that pop up from the ground, I stop attacking her immediately and focus on that with all of my focus. I think my least favorite attack pattern where the roots come out of the ground is the one where they're just vertical straight lines and they keep alternating from left to right. It's pretty easy, but I always had a lot of trouble with it for some reason. I lost a run to it, which is so sad that I got all the way here and still lost a run. But you'll notice that I'm taking care of the Bublins first, because I don't like their rolling. These guys, they only have one projectile, it's not too bad. But I'm going to try to get them both to low health, because, oh, I accidentally killed one. Okay, well, ouch. Okay, well, what I was trying to do was have both of them on low health so I could kill them immediately before Mother Tree got back up, and then I panicked and got hit, but it's fine, it's fine. It's not very much damage. There could be much worse. Like the mini-boss rots that can show up in Frenzy 3, and I think one of them shows up later in this fight, unless it was the smaller version of it. They do so much damage, and honestly, I'd rather get hit by that little guy. Yeah, this is my least favorite. But once I started just ignoring hitting Mother Tree and primarily focusing on dodging the roots, it became a little bit easier. But it's been quite some time. Mother Tree's already just a quarter down, and it's only going to get worse when we get to the end of the fight, where Mother Tree will spawn enemies repeatedly. Mother Tree won't have her shield, but enemies will stay on screen, so I have to deal with both at the same time. The Owlitzer does a very similar thing, except the Owlitzer is far more annoying, so I'm fairly nervous about if I ever choose to do this with the other areas. Ouch. I missed my cross check. Y-axis moment. I mean, I'm at half health. You'd probably want to drink your potion when you have 500 health. Or no, 400, because I'll get 500 back from the potion. And similarly, I'm trying to kill the imbued Bublins first, just because they are the biggest issue here. Ow, ow, oh. Just watching it back, and I could have died so easily there. And drinking the potion can be risky too, just because you're in such end lag. Well, not end lag, but just drinking the potion takes a long time, and you can get hit during it. I am not recovering well, but, you know, I have a little bit of health left. It's only half of my health, but that goes away so fast. It just takes one big enemy to just ruin that dream. Luckily, I think that was the hardest wave. Oh, actually, I'm not sure. I can't remember if the next wave had... Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that there is another wave with the mini-boss rot. I think it was a small version of the mini-boss rot, though. This one definitely takes second place. There's a version of this where there's 3 instead of 2 circles that go outward, and it's on the last phase. But that one definitely takes second place for hardest one to avoid, at least for me. And that one, at least, is understandably the hard one. When in doubt, I just dodge to the beat of the stingers that they have. And by stinger, I mean audio stinger. Start playing a rhythm game with the roots that come up. Because as long as I'm dodging to the beat of the roots coming up, then I'm going to guarantee at least perfect dodge, even if I'm on top of one. Okay. I'm just going to try to get my hits in where I can, honestly. Because at this point, I just need to not die. The amount... I'm not even sure if one hit will kill me. I haven't entirely paid attention to how much damage each enemy does. I know that that mini boss rot will do. That'll kill me for certain. But I don't know if these imbued Bublins will do enough damage to kill me or not. So I just want to live. But as long as... I'm pretty sure Mother Tree activates fairly early, too, on this one. I think the threshold for the amount of enemies that can be left is still fairly high. I think if I kill one more, Mother Tree comes back online, which is a little rough. So I at the absolute... Yep, there she is. At the very least, want to make sure those imbued Bublins are gone. Even the mini boss rot is fine. He's pretty slow. It's just, you know, getting hit by him will end the run, so... This is what I live for, though. The amount of adrenaline that I get for completing this challenge is well worth the hours I spend playing. It's so... This is why people shiny hunt. It's the most boring, tedious thing you can possibly imagine. Except, I feel like this is slightly less boring, but the reward is unlike any other. Go, bomb, bomb, bomb. Let's go! Get myrtleated. I also just realized that these bombs are pine cones, and that's why the Mother Tree is allowed to throw them. But the hardest part of the fight is behind us. With that mini boss rot gone, it's just going to be this little Bublin and whatever that thing is called, the armadillo. Oh, two little mini Bublins, but they'll keep spawning in even if I kill them, so I have to fight Mother Tree at the same time. So even though the hardest part of the fight is done, this is going to be the slowest part of the fight, because I am really close to death here. I do not want to die, and I have to do both of these at the same time. So I'm just going to play really patient, really clean, and hopefully I come out on top without actually getting hit. I don't know if I can probably take one hit from like the mini Bublin, but at this point I can't really risk it. I think I'm a one-shot to most things here, including Mother Tree if I had to guess, which is just some justice for a content video, right? And I have to be one-shot by the end of the actual fight, on edge. See, I really don't mind this little windmill pattern that they do with the roots. It's so nice to avoid, but it is an interesting pattern because it can force you towards the enemies or the bombs that are about to go off. So I think it's a very interesting pattern that they do. But for the patterns to be difficult on their own, the one where it's like a circle that spreads out, 3 of them anyway, it happens during this phase. Let's see if she does it here. Yeah, it's this one right here. This is definitely the most interesting pattern by itself, but it is quite a difficult one to wrap your head around, at least for me. Get my attack cancels in where I can. That's the run. Hope you enjoyed. It's pretty fun for me to do. Took a long time, but felt good.